Always at the gate is a heart-wrenching and inspiring story of loyalty, devotion, and timeless love. It follows a profound journey of a being who waits patiently, day after day at the same spot, holding on to the memory of a loved one. The tale echoes the power of connection, the pain of loss, and the beauty of unwavering loyalty. This is a story that will touch your heart and remind you of the profound bonds we share with those we love. The town of Willow Bend was small, a place where everyone knew each other's stories, but few dared to carry the weight of them. And yet, if you ever passed through the train station, just as the 5:12 evening train rolled in, you'd find an old golden retriever lying by the wrought iron gate, eyes fixed on the arriving cars, tail thumping softly when the doors slid open. His name was Rusty. Nobody knew exactly when he'd started showing up. Some said it was 6 years ago. Others swore it was longer. But everyone agreed on one thing. Rusty was waiting for someone who was never coming back. It began with Henry Lowell, the town's retired literature teacher. Henry wasn't known for extravagance or flair. He wore the same corduroy coat every winter, read the same leather-bound edition of Great Expectations every spring, and brewed his tea at exactly 6:30 a.m. in a chipped blue kettle that hissed before it sang. His life was quiet, simple, until he found Rusty. The dog had been no more than a pup, huddled beneath the bridge near the eastern creek, shivering from the early frost. Henry had spotted him on one of his daily walks, his old bones aching, but his eyes sharp as ever. "Well now," Henry had said, kneeling beside the frightened creature, "you're either lost or you've been forgotten." Rusty didn't move, but when Henry reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the crust of a sandwich, the pup inched closer, took it delicately, and leaned into the warmth of a human hand. That was the start. From that day on, Rusty followed Henry everywhere. Through town, to the library, to the train station when Henry visited his sister in the next city. They were inseparable, the kind of bond people noticed and quietly admired. Henry spoke to Rusty as though the dog understood every syllable, and perhaps he did. On cold nights, Rusty curled by the fireplace, one paw resting on Henry's slippered foot. Rusty became part of the town's fabric. Children would pet him on their way to school. Shopkeepers left scraps out by their doors. The librarian, Mrs. Gardner, always had a biscuit tucked into her apron for him. Henry joked that Rusty had more friends than he did. There were stories behind their routines. Henry used to sit under the oak tree outside the library every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, holding informal reading sessions for any child who passed by. Rusty would lie beside him like a watchful guardian. One day, little Ellie Jenkins had been crying over a scraped knee, and it was Rusty who had trotted over and rested his head in her lap. Her sobs turned into giggles. In the winters, Henry would knit scarves, poorly, with mismatched lengths and drop stitches, and gift them to townspeople. He even made one for Rusty, a red and gold striped thing that Rusty wore proudly around his neck. Every Saturday, Henry would take Rusty to the meadow just beyond Maple Hill. It was their secret haven, where the wind danced through tall grass and the wildflowers painted the earth with color. Henry would sit on the old bench under the sycamore tree, reading aloud while Rusty lay beside him, tail gently wagging, eyes half closed in peace. In spring, the air was heavy with lilac. In summer, the sun cast long, golden shadows. Once, they watched a thunderstorm roll in from that bench. Henry hadn't moved, hadn't read, just sat with Rusty while lightning danced along the ridges. "Storms don't last forever," he whispered, and Rusty pressed closer. Henry had grown used to the solitude of old age. But with Rusty, it wasn't solitude anymore. It was companionship. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was late autumn. The leaves had begun their descent, carpeting the sidewalks in shades of gold and rust. Henry stood by the gate at Willow Bend Station, suitcase in hand, patting Rusty's head with practiced affection. "I'll be back by evening, boy," he said. "Just a quick trip to the city hospital. The doc wants a few tests, nothing serious." Rusty wagged his tail, nudging Henry's hand once more before watching him board the train. That was the last time anyone saw Henry Lowell alive. A sudden cardiac arrest, they said. Quick, peaceful, but it did not feel peaceful for Rusty. That evening, he returned to the gate. Saturday waited. When the 5:12 train arrived, Rusty stood, tail flicking expectantly. People stepped off. Families reunited. Businessmen hurried. College students laughed. But Henry was not among them. Rusty didn't move. He lay down again, eyes fixed on the empty doors long after they'd closed. At first, townsfolk thought he'd give up after a few days. But Rusty came back, every day, every evening, right before 5:12. Rain or snow, summer heat or icy wind. He sat by the gate and watched. They tried to coax him home. Henry's house sat silent, covered in a light dust of time. A neighbor brought Rusty back one night, placing him on the porch with a fresh blanket and bowl of stew. But by morning, he was gone again, back at the station. The station master, a man named Carl, took to leaving out water and a small cushion by the bench. Children would stop by and sit with Rusty, reading books or whispering secrets into his velvet ears. Elderly women began knitting blankets, placing them beside him like offerings to a silent guardian. Rusty never barked, never begged. He simply waited. Each season told its own story of Rusty's vigil. In spring, when cherry blossoms bloomed, Rusty could be seen sitting amidst fallen petals, looking like a statue sculpted by love. In summer, he panted in the heat but never left his post. Kind vendors gave him ice cubes and shade. In autumn, when the air turned crisp, he would lie on a pile of Henry's old sweaters that Carl had lovingly brought from the house. In winter, snow gathered on his back, but he endured it, eyes ever fixed on the horizon. One year, a young reporter from the city arrived to write about him. Her article, "The Dog Who Waits," went viral. Tourists began visiting, photos were taken, paintings made, but Rusty paid them no mind. He waited for only one person. One child, inspired by the story, started a school essay contest titled, "The Friend I'll Always Wait For." Dozens of entries poured in, all about Rusty. A mural was painted on the school wall showing Henry and Rusty under the meadow sycamore tree. One winter, during the worst blizzard in a decade, Rusty didn't appear at the station. Concern swept through town. Carl found him beneath Henry's porch, trembling, too weak to move. They rushed him to the vet. "He won't last much longer," the vet said gently. "He's holding on for something, or someone." Carl sat with him that night, tears in his eyes. "You can let go, Rusty. He's waiting for you too, just not here." But Rusty lived through the storm, and the next spring. Sometimes Carl would read aloud to him in the station, just like Henry did. Sometimes little Ellie, now 10, would braid flowers into his collar. Vendors at the farmer's market would take turns giving him treats and brushing his fur. He had become the town's heart. Until one crisp autumn evening, exactly 7 years to the day since Henry's last journey, Rusty arrived at the gate for the final time. He didn't lie on the bench or curl by the cushion. He stood, and as the 5:12 train pulled in, a gust of wind rustled the trees, scattering golden leaves like whispers. Rusty lifted his head, tail wagging slowly. The doors opened. Passengers stepped off. No one saw what Rusty saw, but his tail wagged faster. And for a moment, just a flicker, his eyes lit up as they once did. Then he lay down, rested his head on his paws, and closed his eyes. He never woke again. Carl found him the next morning, still and peaceful, as though he'd finally found what he had been waiting for. The town mourned. Businesses closed for a day. Children made drawings of Rusty. Flowers piled at the gate. A statue was erected, a bronze likeness of Rusty sitting patiently, eyes forever watching the tracks. Beneath it, a plaque read, "In loving memory of Rusty, who taught us that love never leaves, it only waits." And to this day, when the 5:12 rolls in, sometimes the wind shifts just right, and the leaves stir near the statue. Some say it's nothing. Others say it's Rusty, still waiting, still watching. But the people of Willow Bend know better. They know that sometimes love is a presence, not a memory, and that presence lives always at the gate. If always at the gate touched your heart, don't forget to share this powerful tale with your friends and family. For more stories that explore themes of love, loss, and loyalty, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue sharing powerful stories that change the way we view relationships, devotion, and the human spirit.